watching this, I'm dead. Probably dead. No, not really, probably. Possibly? Probably not. But it could be. It's highly unlikely, though. Where was I going with this? Oh, right. This is your first time here, like I said, I'm Foxwater, and I'll make videos about pro wrestling and video games. Sometimes both, but that's right. Why do I do this?
Wah, wah, wah.
Do I do this? None of your business. I have my reasons. Today, I want to count down and hold on to your hats because this is something that has never been done on YouTube before. My top 5 favorite video games of all time. Not just some of the time, of all time. This is an important distinction. I should point out this is my list of the top 5 video games of all time. I should point that out, but honestly, if you need that pointed out, you're obviously stupid. And there's no hope for you. Moron. Alright, let's do this.
Number 5, Destiny 2.
So, I wasn't the biggest fan of the original Destiny when it first came out. The early word on it wasn't exactly stellar. But I loved the first 3 Halo games, and I was willing to give Bungie a shot. I eventually hit a wall with it when I got to a story mission that I couldn't complete without either playing with other people, as I was the only other person I knew that actually played the game, or grinding for like 800 years. I didn't even jump into Destiny 2 with both feet right away. Luckily, a friend of mine bought me a digital copy, and so I decided to give it a chance. Right away, it was a so much better experience than the first game. And as the game improved, the more I got into it. I completed the story missions on my own, and I was able to matchmake with players I didn't know for parts of the game that need multiplayer. The biggest reason this game makes this list is that even to this day, I can still jump into it and find something to do. I can play it my way. If I just want to dork around and play Gambit or Dares of Eternity, I could do that. If I want to play through a story mission or two, I could do that. There's stuff in the game I'm not interested in. You dorks playing Crucible or doing raids can go right the hell ahead. But Destiny 2 never makes me feel bad for not doing them. I know that live service games are the bane of a lot of gamers these days, but Destiny 2, to this mass doofus anyway, is one done right. Number 4, Suikoden 2. There was a brief time in my life between the SNES/Genesis and the PS1 eras where I kind of lost interest in games. What got me back into it was my college roommate busting out Final Fantasy VII. So thanks, Eric. This is your fault. No, seriously, thank you. The original PlayStation had no lack of JRPGs. The 3 Final Fantasy games for the system, Lunar, Silver Star Story, and remind me to tell you a story about that one, Xenogears, and Legend of Dragoon, just to name a handful. But the first one I picked up after Final Fantasy VII was the original Suikoden. I found it in a discount bin in an electronics boutique, saw the cover, and thought, yeah, I should probably play this. What I found was a thrilling story in a game with multiple styles of gameplay. I could go on for a whole video about these 2 games. Maybe I will someday. But this is my absolute favorite RPG for the system for a long time. Until its sequel came out. Suikoden 2 took everything I loved about the first and did everything I wanted from JRPG sequel. Suikoden 2 took place not only in the same world as the original, but shortly after it. Characters I grew to love in the first game returned, and plot points were followed up on. It was also the first instance, years before Mass Effect, where what you did in the previous title had an impact in its sequel. Granted, it added just one playable character, the hero from the first Suikoden, but nobody else had done anything like that before. At least I don't think they did. I don't know. Maybe some obscure series on the Amiga did it. This is what we have comments for. Suikoden 2 also had a story that was both grounded and melodramatic. I was riveted from the start, and I still think about it to this day. But more than anything, Suikoden 2 is a game that I could fire up on my Vita, at least until the remasters Konami has been promising come out, and still get into it. Which is more than I can say for Final Fantasy VII, sadly. Which isn't a knock on Final Fantasy VII, it's a great game, I just can't really get into playing it again after all these years, and you know what, I'm just gonna move on before this gets a downvote. Number 3, Star Fox 64. So, it wasn't just Final Fantasy VII, or even just one college roommate. They got me back into gaming back in the day. So, here's the story. My first year in college, Iowa State University, y'all. My dorm building caught on fire. True story. While the school worked out on cleaning out the building, they put those of us living there in the common room of a different building, like a freaking refugee camp. It was lovely. Walking by the room of Jason, with a Y, because that's what he went by, because it's hardcore. Also, he's the guy who would eventually be my future roommate, and still one of my best friends to this day. What's I going into this? Oh, right. I caught my first glimpse of Star Fox 64, and I never looked back. I had played the original back on the SNES, and I liked it. I think the characters, Wagga Blagga voices kind of annoyed me. Not that I expected full voice acting on the Super Nintendo. Do a barrel roll! Then again, I didn't expect 3D graphics on the Super Nintendo either, and they pulled that shit off. So who knows what I was thinking. But I was down for the flight combat and story and the animal characters that apparently had their legs amputated and replaced with robot parts. Huh. Star Fox 64, on the other hand, had me obsessed. I had to go out and get my own N64 and a copy of the game. Between that and an emulated copy of Chrono Trigger on my PC, a PC I should have been using to write, like, I don't know, college shit. I played so many video games instead of going to class that eventually Iowa State was like, hey, maybe don't go here anymore. I'm not blaming Star Fox 64 or even Nintendo for that, it's just what happened. To this day, I still fire up Star Fox 64, easy for you to say, on my Nintendo Switch or 3DS. Every single level in the game is a playground. First, you discover all it has to offer. Then you discover its secrets. Then you play it to master it, or just to enjoy, like a bowl of soup, or a mug of soup, or anything with soup in it. Number 2, Mass Effect 2. I first want to point out that the concept of choices made on one game carrying over to the next was not invented by BioWare. Advent Rising from Majesco was originally supposed to do that, and it would have if the game had been successful, and not written by a weird homophobic Mormon. The original Mass Effect was one of those games that I was blown away by and frustrated with at the same time. I was a fan of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, despite never actually finishing it, and Jade Empire. Did anyone finish that? And I was familiar with BioWare's pedigree with the D&D games that had released beforehand. However, Mass Effect leaned more into the RPG aspect of itself than I would have liked. And that's on me. Looking back, it's probably the most interesting game in the series. Well, actually, Andromeda is the most interesting game of the series just because of what a goddamn mess it was. But upon finishing it, and by it I mean the first Mass Effect, I was mostly interested in how my choices in that game would affect the sequel. I was not disappointed. Mass Effect 2 took everything from the first game, including how I played it, and made it better. Didn't like the combat from the first game? F you, it's way better now. Didn't like the inventory system? F you, it's way easier to use. Didn't like the fact that you can only bump uglies with one of 3 different NPCs? Well, now you can get busy with, like, more than that. BioWare figured out that you don't need a text dump to fill the world. Although it certainly helped in the first game to set up everything. And that you could have an action-heavy RPG while still telling an amazing story and build legendary characters. And that final mission? You don't need to tell me how incredible it was. You either played it yourself or read it and watched diatribes like this one to tell you that. I don't hate Mass Effect 3. I actually like the endings after BioWare added more stuff and made them all presentable. But Mass Effect 2 is a masterpiece. In fact, it would be number 1 if it weren't for number 1, Red Dead Redemption. So, you'll notice there's not a 2 at the end of that. Nothing against the 2018 sequel. It probably would be like, I don't know, 7 on this list? No lower than 10 anyway. But the original, if you don't count Red Dead Revolver, which I don't because why would you unless you enjoy being difficult, that's everything I want in a video game. It tells a great story. I like those. So it works out nicely. The controls like a dream. It took the mechanics that Rockstar had been fiddling with since Grand Theft Auto 3 and made them awesome. There are so many goddamn mini games and diversions that it's a change in location away from being a Yakuza game. Or, you know, like a dragon. Whatever they're calling it now. It's an open world where there's plenty to discover and plenty of random shit that can happen to you. And not only still holds up today, it even outshines most of the other open world games out there. Like, did you even play the new Saints Row? Ugh. Okay, ladies and germs, that was my top 5 games of all time. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you didn't, well, I don't know what to tell you. Let's not make a production out of it, okay? Anyway, I'm Foxwater. You'll see me next time.